Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Moy Style podcast. So today we have Coach Eric Gutierrez. He's the assistant coach for Westmoore Highschool, and I've gotten to know him throughout the baseball season this year. And so I really think he does a great job with our boys at the high school, and I know he's coach at the college level as well. So I thought he would be a great guest today to talk about really the mental side of the game. So. And really the topic of this episode is about how to win the mental game, especially in baseball. So, Eric, appreciate you for being on today, man. If you don't mind, this is what I like to do with every guest. Just introduce yourself so people can get to know you, and then we'll kind of get rolling with the questions.
Yeah. First and foremost, thank you, Regulo, for having me on. Like you said, I played 4 years of college baseball, and then after I graduated, I coached 2 years at a 4-year, and then this was my first year over at Westmoore with Regulo. Outside of baseball, I like running or just competing. I've done 2 marathons, one 55-mile race, one 66-mile race, and a couple of halves and 5Ks. But
yeah, no, that's pretty cool. And I thought it would be great to bring him on because I know he doesn't have social media or anything like that, but I think he's got great stuff. And I feel like a lot of coaches out there that don't have social media doesn't mean that they're not good coaches. So I thought this would be a great episode to help out a lot of players and coaches and even parents out there too. So the first thing that I wanted to ask is, how do you get ready mentally for a game?
So when it comes to baseball, failure is going to happen. If you hit 300, you fail 7 out of 10 times. That's the big saying. But my biggest thing was making the study guide harder than the test. The test would be the game. The study guide would be practice. So put them in every single situation that they could possibly be in a practice or in a game in practice. So if they're going to see 93, make it that they're seeing 95 in practice. If they're going to play on turf, take them over to somewhere where the bounces might be a little bit more irregular or anything like that, just to give them that confidence that when they do get into a game, it's nothing that they haven't seen before.
Right. Yeah, and obviously I was there, but I want you to talk about kind of what we did, especially before, we faced those guys that were throwing, low 90s, maybe mid 90s. I forget the guy's name. Hall.
Yeah.
Is that Hall?
Yeah, Owen Hall.
Yeah, he was pretty good. So, what do we do to get them prepared for those games?
So we were facing this guy from Edmond North, Owen Hall. He was going to Vanderbilt. He'll probably be a first-round guy, but he is topped out at 98. Okay, no one else in the state is doing that, and I can't throw 98. Regulo can't throw 98. So what we did was scoot the L screen up to about 20 to 30 feet, and we were throwing as hard as we could. And we did not want our players to feel comfortable because comfortable doesn't win you games. We wanted you to compete and feel uncomfortable so that when you did see 95 to 98, you were ready for it. So we did that with live arm, and then with the machine, we would put it up 20 to 30 feet, crank it up again, and have them do a 2-plate drill to basically make the ball look bigger and make it feel like they have more time. So again, just making the steady guide harder than the test.
Well, okay, yeah, I ain't gonna lie, I was pretty sore after I started throwing so much, but. So what did you do? Because I remember now, it's just going back to me, but right before we faced, so we went from facing a guy, I think it was the first regional game, we went from facing a guy that might have been throwing, I don't know, maybe low 70s. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how fast he was throwing, but then we had to get him ready to face a guy that was throwing, like you said, mid 90s to maybe upper 90s. So what was the one thing that you did right before the game?
So just like you said, we went from basically seeing a low level to average high school guy to the best of the best. And so what we did is take them out a little bit, give them some rest so their eyes don't get adjusted to it. And then right before we saw the 95, 98, whatever, they would come over and we would basically just throw BBs at them from about 10 feet away and make them get a bunt down just so that their eyes get acclimated to it again, because we don't want them to get acclimated to 70. Like I told the guys throughout the entire season, I don't care if you can hit 70 to 78. I want you to be able to hit 90 to 95 because that's what it's going to take to win a state championship.
Right. That's a pretty good point because obviously, that was my first year at the high school level, and, I didn't know what to expect because like I've said on my previous episodes, I've never played high school here in the U.S., and I remember you guys would always tell me you're always going to see the number 1 and number 2 and district games, and now I see what you guys meant. But I thought that was a great drill, just to literally have them, like at right before the next game, we had them like that short distance.
Yeah.
I thought it was crazy at first, but I was like, you know what, that's a great idea. I thought we didn't do so well that game, I don't think, right? But then when we faced the number 2, we did a lot better. So I thought that was great stuff. Okay, now what about any any techniques to build the mental toughness for a player?
So mental toughness, I just think about completing and accomplishing hard things. Don't just do hard things, but you have to actually accomplish them so your mind knows that you can do it and you can finish it. So in regards to the Owen Hall kid, we necessarily didn't hit off him as best as we should have or could have, but velo was not an option any other time throughout the state tournament. We saw 90 to 92, but it's not 98.
Right.
The first guy in state, the previous week before, he was up to 94, 95, but they knew that they've already hit off of us from 30 feet, and it was equivalent to like 101. So their mind knows that, okay, I can do that. This isn't anything that I can't accomplish or finish, basically. And I think just doing those things throughout life, just an example is I completed a 66-mile race, and I was going to do a marathon, which is 26.2, and I didn't have enough time to do a full training session, but on race day, I ended up beating my previous marathon time by an hour, and I was able to move around and be normal of a guy after. And I really do believe that it was just because my mind knew that the pain wasn't going to be as bad as 66. It's not going to be 66 miles, so it knew that I could accomplish it, and it didn't let my body fall into that trap of, oh crap, this is 26.2 miles, this is just a marathon.
Right.
Same concept.
Right. No, that's a good point. And that's what I was going to ask you now about your marathon, which I think you're kind of crazy for doing that, but I think it's pretty cool at the same time. So I know it's kind of a weird question, but what's your goal with running a marathon? Are you trying to win, or are you trying to like get tougher mentally, or what's your goal with that?
So obviously everyone's goal should be to win,
right.
But I'm a realist. I'm not going to be running 220 marathons unless I have a really, really long year of training for it. But at the end of the day, I just really like pushing myself to the limits and going one step above. So like I said, the previous year I finished in like 540 and I thought I was about to die. This year I got 445, which is pretty good, but I can get better. So my next time I run a marathon, I just want to get a little bit better. But I also have to be realistic in the aspect of it's a marathon. Like one small thing, I twist my ankle or I have a stomach bug that day and it throws everything off.
Yeah,
so
it's over.
The biggest goal is to finish on E and know that I didn't leave anything else out there, because it's only 26.2 miles. It'll only last 26.2 miles. So don't wish it away, really.
Yeah, well, it sounds pretty easy. 26.2 miles. I can barely make it 1.5 miles, if that. The other day I just pulled my hamstring too, just running from 60 feet.
Yeah, pretty good.
That's not something to be proud of. But no, that's good stuff. And I really like how you approach it, because you still, I guess, in a way, consider a young coach, but I feel like you're way more advanced than a lot of the young coaches out there, and I think that's why I thought I would bring you on today. Now. And there's going to be a tough one here. So how do you stay focused, when you're in a losing streak? Because there for a while, I remember we kind of hit a little rough patch there where we were losing quite a few games, and it seemed like nothing was working for us. So how do you stay focused,
Well, first thing, you have to realize or figure out the difference between controllables and uncontrollables. Like if we were just getting outplayed because they had better athletes, that's something that isn't too coachable at that point. But if you're getting beat at, we're not making the routine plays, we're not getting bunts down, we're not taking pitches when we should to, those are things that we can fix. So figure out what's controllable, what's uncontrollable, and then simplify it. Don't think about trying to win 5 games in a row. Just worry about touching home more times than the other team that day. Okay, and you have to realize that you could do everything in your power correct, but they could still touch home one more time. So basically just simplify it and give them a light at the end of the tunnel. Like my goal was to win a state championship. at the end of the day, I could care less if we lost every single game going up until the regional. As long as we won the state championship, that should be your goal. And just letting them realize that is our goal is to play the best baseball at the end of the season.
Right.
I don't care if we play the best baseball March 1 and then we slowly get worse because we didn't accomplish anything at the end of the day.
Right. Now, I feel like I'm kind of going back and forth over here on this one, but I just remember back in the fall, when we were hitting ground balls today, like I remember you were talking about making it tougher in the game. So what was your whole, which I kind of in a way I already said it, but what was your goal with smoking ground balls at these guys, in the fall?
Just for them to realize that 9 times out of 10, the ground balls that they field will not be like that. And
Right.
if they can field a hard ground ball or a very, very difficult ground ball 9 out of 10 times, in a game, everything is going to be slower. You're not going to have a coach yelling panic at you, freaking yelling get some and all that crazy stuff. It's just you're playing a game. Okay, that's your time to go have fun, enjoy it. But in practice, it's the coach's job to get you prepared to that and realize that it's not always going to be fun and easy. And I think that will also build confidence and mental toughness that you'll see later on in the year.
Right. Yeah. And I remember that's the word that you would always use, panic. Yeah, which is so true because at first I thought it was funny, but then it hit me. I was like, that's really what happens. I mean, people hit the panic button as soon as they miss a ball or something. Yeah. And I remember we did what's the when you play catch, the 4 groups in the infield? I forget what it was called.
Around the world.
Right, around the world, yes. And they had a hard time making it all their way through, and that's when you kept saying panic, but it's so true. You have to learn how to, if you can't play catch, in the fall, how the heck are you expected to win a state championship? Yeah. So I thought that was pretty funny, but pretty true at the same time.
And then at that point is you're allowing external factors to dictate what you do. And that was my biggest thing is if you're speeding up just because I tell you to speed up, or you're panicking just because I tell you to panic, then when a game comes, you're not prepared fully up here. So what you have to realize is if I can do things and not let external factors dictate what I do, how I do it, and that's when you've got that mental toughness.
Right. Yeah. No, that's true because and it happens too. Obviously, at the younger levels that I also coach, one thing can lead to. One error can lead to another one before you know you have a circus out there. So it happens at any level, really. Now, so how do you manage pressure, especially when you're going to go play regionals or you're a game away from state or you're a game away from winning state?
So I would say simplify it again. Don't think of it as winning a state championship because that's a huge goal and a huge picture that not a lot of people can handle. But like I said all the time, simplify it. Touch home more times than the other team.
Yeah.
It does not matter whether you have 10 errors or you strike out 15 times. As long as you touch home more times than the other team, then you'll win. And I think that calms their anxiety and flips a switch in their minds to where that's all we got to do. It's achievable. And then what I personally like to do with our guys, it's different with other teams, other coaches, but I like challenging them. Our guys were very confident in themselves, but they liked the challenge. So I would challenge them personally or as a team, and that would really get them over to the edge that I wanted them to be at. And at the end of the day, it was a good job.
Yeah, that was definitely was a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Now, I did have, I remember some of the guys, which you could hear around the either locker room sometimes or even on the field, which I feel like our guys never really panic that crazy. But you'll have a player or two that will, talk to themselves negatively. Okay, so how do you control that? Because I feel like you can talk about, be real negative about what do you think the outcome is going to be? And then I feel like you can flip it around at any point, right before the game or maybe in the middle of the game.
Yeah. So if they're big on negative self-talk, I would first talk with the player and figure out why it is that they're having negative talk. It could be some sort of relationship issue, or they might just try to be perfect, and figure that out and break it down into steps and think about how they are during practice. Are they putting in as much work as they could be? Because if they're not, then subconsciously they know that they haven't been putting in the work, so errors are possible, but no one likes making errors. So I think of it as like armor, whereas in practice, the more reps you do with good intent, the stronger and thicker your armor gets, so that in a game, if you make an error, it's less likely to cut through all the armor and get to your skin, where the negative self-talk comes from. But I'm a firm believer in positive self-talk. Have a little mantra you say before every game or every AB or every fielding practice or anything. And mine was, I would just tap myself on the head when I would get into the box and tell myself I'm a bad man. And I would just flip the switch of, I don't necessarily care about the result. I just want to compete to the highest level, and my goal was to get on first base. I didn't care if it was walk, hit by pitch, or anything like that, but just focus on what you can focus on, or control what you can control, and make sure that you end on E and you go full tilt. I think that will help with negative self-talk.
Yeah, I like that little tap on the helmet. It's kind of a way to flip the switch and go. And I've heard your stories, from other coaches about you when you played, and you might not been the biggest guy, the strongest guy, but you were just a guy that probably wanted more than anybody else out there. So I think that's pretty awesome. Now, how can you push through challenges? So I'm giving you kind of an example. Like, in the fall, obviously we're working pretty hard, and so they have a lot of challenges. But a lot of them, what I would tell some of the players that you don't have to be necessarily, like, when you're doing, whatever challenge that they're doing, you don't have to necessarily be the first one to finish, but at least try to be at least somewhere in the middle by the end of the fall or something. Because I feel like some of the guys will coast, right? And then they will never make any type of progress. They would just, when I go, all right, they know I'm slow, so I'm just going to be slow throughout the fall and I'll get away with it. So how would you push through challenges like that?
So first, you need to have that conversation with yourself of,
hey guys, as an appreciation for hanging out with me this long, I want to give you 10% off for any of my 2 online infield courses. So you have the Master of Art Fielding course. You can get 10% off that for either the monthly or the yearly. And you can also get 10% off if you purchase the mini course, which is the Master in Fielding Timing. When you go over here to my full course, you're gonna have access to over 250 lessons that you can choose from. Just make sure you type in Moy Podcast 10 to get 10% off. And if you follow step by step how I have it set up in this program, I guarantee you're gonna see results. Like that.
So first, you need to have that conversation with yourself of, there's 2 choices. You either push through it or you don't. Like, you're either complacent or you're constantly trying to get 1% better each day. And I know who you're talking about. And at that point, you just have to have that conversation with yourself and think, why am I out here? Okay. Is it to get better, to get faster, to get stronger? If it's one of those things, then you need to figure out a way to push through those things, and that will build mental resilience, mental toughness, and all of those things. But at the end of the day, your goal should be getting 1% better. If there's a guy that runs a 7.5 60, his goal shouldn't be to run a 6.5 next week or next month. His goal should be to get it down to a 7.4. Right. So having those personal goals and making sure that they're obtainable. Like, if you throw 78, make sure that you're not trying to throw 90 in 2 months. Like, slow increments and constantly push yourself, because if you constantly push yourself, then at the end of the day, when the game's over, when your career's over, you don't have any regrets. And that's what I want our guys to not have, is regret.
Right. That's a good point, because a lot of times, I would even say, even myself, like, sometimes we try to have these major goals, but we forget about, making, those small progresses that will get you there. And I think that's really what happens to a lot of players too. They want to hit, they want to throw 95 when they throw 75, but they don't want to just, they want the obviously they want to throw 95 tomorrow instead of just slowly progressing to get there. Now, and this one is I think it's another hard question. So how do you bounce back either from a loss or from having a rough season, right? Because not every player is going to have it's going to start up hot, at the beginning of the season and then stay hot throughout the whole year. You're going to have some kind of ups and downs. So how do you bounce back from that?
So the first thing I would say is just think about it on the grand scheme of things. Think about why you didn't have a good season, good game, or whatever it is that it may be, and figure out what can you control, okay? Is it your mindset, okay? Break it down from that. Is it your hands were too low or they were too high, or just your approach, or you weren't getting enough reps? And then just go and think about what you can control, and then go from there. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have bad games, you're going to have bad seasons, but you have the opportunity to not have those back to back. That should be your goal, is to make those either in-game adjustments, at-bat to at-bat adjustments, or season to season. So that, because doing the same thing over and over again, that's just the definition of insanity. So make sure you're trying something different, because if you're not, then you're expecting different results when you're given the exact same effort or exact same everything, and it's just not a good recipe for success.
All right. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, don't keep doing the same thing, because obviously if you keep doing the same thing, you can't expect different results. And I think, we had a couple of players that I'm sure when they hear this, they'll know who they are, but that's okay, because I really I admire the fact that they stuck with their, basically their work ethic. They stuck with it. And I know you know what I'm talking about. They work hard, and at some point it paid off, because they had a pretty rough beginning, but then they ended up finishing up strong, and I think that's what what it's all about. Now I'm gonna put you as a player here. So I guess back when you were playing, so how do you, I guess, how can you be a leader on the team? Like, what were you trying to do to accomplish that, to be a leader on the team back when you were playing in high school?
So when I was a player in high school, I wanted to be what I wanted the team to be. If it was a vocal leader, I wanted to be the vocal leader. If I wanted to be a non-vocal leader of just going full tilt, diving around everywhere, I made sure I was doing that. If I wanted everybody else to get hit by pitches, I would get hit by pitches. If I wanted their goal to be state championship or bust, I had to embody that, because that's the difference between a boss and a leader. Is a boss will just tell you, hey, you need to wear pitches, and then the pitch comes at their shoulder and they move out of the way. Like, that's the difference. A leader says, hey, I want you to wear pitches, and they're constantly getting hit, they're constantly diving around. So that's my biggest thing, is just lead by example, show them what you want or what the team needs in order to be successful.
Right, that's a good point, and I like that, because obviously if you can't do it yourself, how the heck are you gonna expect somebody else to do it?
Exactly.
I always use myself as an example, which I'm not the greatest example for this, but I always say that I don't want to let myself go physically, because how would I tell a player, to get in better shape if I'm the first one to let myself go? And it's not like you have to be a bodybuilder or anything like that, but obviously you have to lead by example. And the same thing, like you said, if you want your guys to get hit by pitch, then obviously you gotta be the first one to get up there and try to wear one. It's pretty good stuff. Now I know you listen to a lot of speakers and read a lot of books. Are there any guys that you can think of that people can listen to, or books that they can read?
Yeah, there's a author, Mark Manson. He has a couple of different books. They're all really, really good. But his main thing was breaking down your anxiety or fear of failure, and think about what would happen. Let's say it's losing a state championship, okay? So you lose a state championship. What would happen after that? What would happen after that? And then just kind of break that down and follow that trail. And 9 times out of 10, when you break that down, you realize that you're still going to be okay. The sun's still going to rise. Your family's still going to love you. Your girlfriend's still going to be there. And then that should give you the most positive confidence you have, because you've already gone through that mindset and that path of failure, and you realize it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. And I feel like that would given me the positive influence, and I feel like it could give everybody else. But then another one was Jocko Willink. He's a really good master of like leadership skills and stuff like that. But his biggest thing is when something bad happens, good, because it gives you the opportunity to overcome it. So when the bad call, good, okay, because guess what? I have the opportunity to overcome it. Okay, don't give yourself a cop out of, this is a bad umpire. Okay, it's bad. I need to. That's my cop out to fail. Like, I struck out because of him. I struck out because the coach doesn't like me, or I didn't play because the coach didn't like me. Coach didn't play you. Okay, good. I had the opportunity to get better and show him that he was right or he was wrong. I was right. That I'm the player that I think I am. And then Jordan Peterson, a big quote from him was, "You're not everything you could be, and you know it." And I think that just comes into being truthful with yourself and realizing you haven't reached the potential that you could be. And you need to constantly strive for that, because if not, you're just complacent. And my biggest thing is life, you should be going upwards. You should be constantly trying to overachieve, because if not, in my mind, like, complacency just kills your goals, kills your life and stuff like that. And then lastly is David Goggins. He's a big ultra runner, former Navy SEAL, just as Jocko. And he's just really big on being truthful to who you are and to those around you that you love, because he says that not a lot of people are as truthful as they should be because it'll hurt their feelings. But at the end of the day, being truthful should be the highest level of love that you show. Those are the guys. And I kind of just take snippets or little mindset chapters from them and kind of.
Yeah. No, I like that. I'm trying to go back to the second name you said, because you're talking about a guy that blames it on everything else except for himself or herself, right? So, like, I remember back in the fall, obviously we call our games, when we were scrimmaging. So why would you call anything close to our batters? I know some of the batters would get mad at you, and me too, but I know you were a little bit tougher on that. So why would you do that?
Because same thing is, study guy needs to be harder than the test. If I'm making bad calls, when it happens in a game, they expect it. They expect a bad call. I would much rather you expect a bad call than expect a good one and be shocked and be flustered and all that and all those types of things. But that's also another reason with that is because it forces them to compete. Is if they know that I'm trying to screw them, they're going to take it as a challenge and say, I'm not going to let him screw me. And that's what I want is you make the call, okay? Because the umpire, they don't know how many reps that you've taken in the fall or whatever your background. They just know that they think it's a strike, they're going to call it. But your job should be you make the call. You don't leave it up in his hands, because it's your career, not his. Okay, because he's going to umpire another game tomorrow. But if it's a state championship and you're not signed anywhere, that could be your last rodeo. So you make the call.
Yeah, it sounds pretty rough, but it's so true because, especially in a high school level, and this goes with any level. It's not like we're just talking specific level. We're just kind of talking about high school because that's obviously where we were working together. But the high school level, you're not going to have major league umpires. Even at the highest level, they still mess up. But I just like what you said, because a lot of times players become they have that victim mentality. So everything is it's their fault. This guy can't throw strikes. I know that the umpire just he's all over the place. So they find any excuse possible to to make up for why they messed up. So I thought that was a pretty good point. Now the last thing I want to ask you here. So going back to state championship. So when did you know we were gonna win it all?
So
and don't lie to me here.
I'm not gonna lie, Regulo. I knew we had the pieces from the get-go.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how or if we would be mentally tough when it needed to be. Because, like I said, the entire year, we're going to have to beat a donkey. We're going to have to beat the best of the best in order to get in the game or get into the state championship. And I really knew we had everything possible when we beat Choctaw. Because at that point in time, I think they were 30th in the nation. They everyone thought they were the New York Yankees, that they were the top dogs. But we competed. We didn't make excuses. When we did make errors or got thrown out, it was going full tilt. And that was also when they trusted us. They trusted our scouting report. They trusted everything, and they were really coachable. So that's when I kind of knew is we had it in there. Are we going to do it? It's up to them. Okay, it's their career, not ours. We can't force them to do anything that they don't want to do. But I knew that we really, really had an opportunity to do it, even though we didn't necessarily show it against other teams throughout the season or anything like that. But that was the biggest turning point in my eyes, where I'm like, okay, we can freaking do this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know how fired up you were in the dugout. I try to keep my cool, but you were pretty fired up. Yeah. And so I don't want to throw you off over here, but and going back and forth, and I think this would be great for the coaches. But do you think the players liked you? I guess I shouldn't say. Hold on. So I shouldn't say like you. I said, do you think the players trusted you more at the end of the season compared to the beginning of the season?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Because they were able to see what I was telling them and see how it played out. Because when I first came in, they didn't know who I was. They just saw my name up on the locker room, but they didn't know what type of person I was. I'm very realistic. I'm very honest. I'm very blunt. But at the end of the day, I'm a student of the game. If I'm not watching TV or hanging out with friends, I'm watching baseball, either highlight videos. Like, I'm constantly studying. And when I wasn't doing anything, I was scouting pitchers. Like I would make scouting reports whenever I had free time. But once they know that you actually care for them and want them to succeed and be a good person, I think that's when they start trusting everything. They have faith in you that you're going to put them in the proper situation to become successful or be successful. And I think you were able to see that from August 17th or whatever it was to May 11th.
Well, the reason that's great stuff. Like the reason why I asked is because a lot of times coaches will give up on players so easy. And they're like, well, they don't listen, so I'm not gonna coach them anymore. And you deal with that at the young ages, the high school. You're gonna deal with the same thing at the college level. If they don't know you, I mean, you gotta give them time for them to obviously for them to trust you. So that's why I was asking you, because I know at the beginning they were like, who the heck is this guy? This guy's out of his mind. But then I remember when they did the interviews, when they would talk about the championship, some of the players, and they would mention you on there. When before, they were like, this guy is out of his mind. So I think that's obviously, as a coach, has got to feel great. It's a great accomplishment. And I remember, I remember you coming in the offense and be like, hey, this guy throws this, this guy throws that. He can't throw that for a strike. So, I think that's what I'm saying. That's why I like having him on today, because, he doesn't really have a social media or any type of social media where he posts all this stuff. But there are a lot of great coaches out there that people don't know about. I just happen to have, social media, I guess, presence or whatever you want to call it. And so I thought it would be great to share all his information. Now, do you have any final thoughts, any advice or recommendation for either young players or high school players or college players?
Yeah, so biggest thing is we're going back to how to be a leader or anything like that. Biggest thing with coaches is to make your philosophy match your coaching style. So if you're wanting them to play hard, fast, and loose, make sure that you're not absolutely exploding on them if they make a physical error. Okay? Because if they're playing hard, fast, and loose, they're going to make errors because they're going full tilt. But as long as they're making that effort at the level you want, make sure that you're coaching them the same way as your philosophy shows. And then going back to how players might not have liked me at the beginning, I had to make sure that what I was doing, I believed in. Because if I didn't believe in it and I just wanted them to like me, I would have just folded and changed everything. But I knew how to get there, how to get to the state tournament, what we needed to be successful, and I firmly believed in it. And I didn't necessarily care if they liked me, because I wanted them to be prepared, because I knew that if they're prepared, that's what I can live with. But if they're not prepared and they like me, I would have more regret for me personally.
Right. No, that's great stuff, man. Thanks a lot for being on today. I'm trying to force him to, that sounds bad, but I'm trying to force him to post his stuff on social media. So I'm trying to, because I think some of the stuff that he says, I think is great stuff for, for really coaches, parents, and obviously players. I think it can help out a lot of people. Anyways, I'm trying to get him on video anytime he talks, so he can post it on his Instagram. What are you on their Instagram? Eric Gutierrez.
Yep, Eric Gutierrez _Goody5.
Yeah. So I'll try to post the link here, and if you're watching on YouTube, I'm gonna post the link below so you can follow him, and obviously some of these clips will be on his page. So again, thanks a lot, man. And if you guys are watching on this, please like, subscribe, and till next time, keep it Moy Style.